5 years of working at the family café, preparing for the day I would take over management. But on the day of retirement, my mother stood before everyone and announced that my younger sister, who had never worked a single day, would be the new manager. I left silently, tears in my eyes, leaving everything behind. Now, the cafe is falling apart, customers are angry, and my mother is drowning in regret, asking me to return and save what can be saved. My response wasn't simple. I had one condition: a public apology in front of everyone. After decades of running the coffee shop she founded with my dad, my mom finally decided it was time to retire and pass the torch to the next generation. To me, it was clear who would take the reins: me. Since I was 22, I left my job at a law firm to work with my mom and learn everything about the business. The coffee shop isn't just a neighborhood cafe, it's a special place that has become the heart of our small town in Ohio. We have loyal customers who have been coming for years, and our unique coffee blend has earned a place in everyone's heart. The plan was always for me to inherit the business. Mom never said it out loud, but after years of learning every detail, innovating with new recipes, and helping expand the cafe's social media presence, I assumed it was the logical next step. My younger sister, on the other hand, never showed any interest in the place. She was always the creative type. She spent more time taking photos of decorative lattes for Instagram than learning how to manage inventory or deal with suppliers. After dropping out of 2 college programs and several jobs, she decided she needed time to find her purpose. That time basically meant staying at home, painting occasionally, and letting my parents cover her expenses. So, imagine my surprise and fury when, during the retirement party, my mom took the microphone and announced that it would be my sister who would take over the coffee shop. The entire room fell silent. Some employees looked at me as if expecting me to say something, but I was paralyzed. My sister, of course, stood up and smiled as if she had just won the lottery. She even raised her glass and said, "It's an honor to take on the family legacy and bring it to the next level." I couldn't stay any longer. I left the coffee shop without looking back, tears in my eyes and my heart shattered. Hours later, my mom called. She said she understood that I was hurt but that she had decided to give my sister the opportunity because they wanted to motivate her to be more responsible. According to her, I would always be the backup in case things got complicated. Backup? After 5 years dedicated to the coffee shop, she expected me to be my sister's babysitter while she played manager. I told her I was disappointed and that if she wanted to give away the business, she would also have to deal with the consequences alone. I made it clear that I would never set foot in the coffee shop again. Since then, I cut off all contact with my mom and my sister, although I continued to talk to my dad, who didn't agree with the decision but chose to remain neutral. I refused to hear any news about the coffee shop, but a few days ago my dad called to tell me that things had gotten out of control. After my dad's call, I knew something bad was happening. He told me that my mom was on the verge of a nervous breakdown and that the coffee shop, which had always been the family's pride, was falling apart. It turns out that my sister, with all her enthusiasm and zero experience, had made catastrophic decisions from day one. To start, she fired several key employees who had been with us for years because, according to her, the place needed a younger vibe. She hired a group of her friends, none of whom knew anything about running a coffee shop. But that wasn't the worst of it. She decided to change several of the classic recipes that our customers loved simply because she found them old-fashioned. She removed our famous carrot cake from the menu, the one that literally brought in dozens of customers every week, and replaced it with vegan and gluten-free options that, according to the reviews I could read online, tasted like cardboard. As if that wasn't enough, my sister had the brilliant idea of saving costs by buying cheaper products. This meant using low-quality milk, which according to the comments on Yelp, completely ruined the taste of our coffees. To make matters worse, she forgot to check the expiration dates on the products, something that had always been a priority for me. The collapse came last week when a regular customer ordered his almond milk latte and unknowingly was served regular milk because they ran out of almond milk and didn't want to lose the order. The customer was lactose intolerant and ended up in the emergency room with a severe episode. The news spread like wildfire. Not only were there social media posts denouncing the incident, but an article also appeared in the local newspaper titled "From Community Favorite to Health Hazard: What Happened to Star Coffee Shop." My mom was desperate. According to my dad, she was spending sleepless nights trying to find a solution, but my sister continued acting as if it wasn't her fault. Supposedly, she had told my mom, "All this is the fault of exaggerated customers. Besides, running a business is harder than it looks." That's what led my mom to call me. It was the first time we had spoken since that fateful retirement party. Her voice sounded exhausted and tense, and without any hesitation, she asked me to come back to the coffee shop. According to her, I was the only one who could save the place before it was too late. I replied that I wasn't interested. I reminded her how she had publicly humiliated me by overlooking me in favor of my sister and that although I loved the coffee shop, I couldn't simply return as if nothing had happened. But then my mom did something I didn't expect. She started to cry. She told me she was wrong, that she had made a terrible decision for the wrong reasons, and that she was willing to do anything to make it right. She even offered to give me full control of the coffee shop if I returned, promising that my sister would no longer be involved in the operations. For a moment, I felt satisfaction. After all, this was exactly what I had warned would happen. But I also felt trapped. I loved the coffee shop, and the idea of seeing it disappear was unbearable. However, my pride was still hurt. I told her I would think about it and hung up the phone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything we had built at the coffee shop, the customers who trusted us, and how much I loved being behind the counter making each visit special. But I also remembered the humiliation and pain I had felt that day. The next day, I received another unexpected call, this time from one of our longest-serving employees. He told me that he had quit, unable to endure my sister's decisions, but that he was willing to return if I came back. He said that most of the employees missed my leadership and were willing to give me a second chance if I decided to take charge. I felt a knot in my stomach. I knew that if I didn't act fast, the coffee shop could close forever. But I still had conditions to meet before I would even consider returning. After hearing what was happening at the coffee shop, I knew I couldn't leave things as they were, but I also knew that returning wouldn't be simple. If I was going to take control and save the business, I needed the rules to be clear from the start, and that included a public apology from my mom and my sister's complete withdrawal from any role within the coffee shop. That same night, I called my mom. I didn't want to waste time beating around the bush, so I was direct. If you want me to come back, these are my conditions. I want you and my sister to publicly admit to the employees and the community that you made a mistake. Also, I need full control of the coffee shop, no more of my sister helping or having a say in the decisions. Everything goes through me. For a moment, there was silence on the other end of the line. Finally, my mom sighed and said, "I'll do whatever it takes. What you're asking is difficult, but I understand it's fair. Just please come back, the coffee shop won't survive without you." However, when it came time to talk to my sister, the conversation was much more tense. She wasn't willing to admit her mistakes, much less apologize. In fact, when I explained what I needed her to do, she laughed sarcastically and said, "Do you really think I'm going to kneel in front of everyone just because things didn't go as planned?" I replied without losing my composure, "This has nothing to do with me, it has to do with the coffee shop and the community you've let down. If you don't want to apologize, fine, but you won't have anything to do with this business anymore." That statement set her off. She started yelling that I was controlling, that I had always been our parents' favorite, and that now I was taking advantage of the situation. I didn't try to argue with her, I knew it wasn't worth it. The next day, my mom called a meeting with the employees at the coffee shop to discuss the situation and, as I requested, to officially give me control of the place. I arrived early, nervous about what might happen but determined to do the right thing. My mom stood up in front of everyone and began to speak. It was hard to see her admit that she had made a bad decision, but you could tell she was being sincere. "I know the last few months have been difficult for everyone, and I want to take responsibility for my mistakes. I thought I was doing what was best for our family and our business, but I was wrong. Today, I'm here to rectify that." Then she looked at me and added, "I'm handing over the coffee shop to the person who really should have been in charge from the beginning. From now on, she will have full control, and I hope you all support her as you always have." Some employees applauded, and others looked at me with a mixture of relief and hope, but what surprised me most was seeing my sister standing at the back of the room. I didn't expect her to come, but there she was, arms crossed and a clear expression of annoyance on her face. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I know this last month has been chaotic, some of you felt abandoned, and some even left the coffee shop because of what was happening. The only thing I can promise is that I will do everything possible to restore the stability and respect this place deserves. I can't do it alone, so I need us to be the team we were before." The response was positive. I felt the support of the majority, although I knew it wouldn't be easy to earn their trust again. The meeting ended with loud applause, but my sister didn't stay to hear the end. She left the coffee shop before I finished speaking. And although I wanted to feel upset, I only felt relieved. I knew that with her out of the way, I would have a real chance to fix things. That same afternoon, I began to review the financial mess my sister had left. The numbers were horrible, the coffee shop was losing money at an alarming rate. Not only had sales dropped, but the negative reviews were seriously affecting our reputation. The list of problems seemed endless. The inventory was disorganized, some suppliers had canceled our contracts due to lack of payment, and there were new employees who had no idea how to handle basic operations. It was clear that I would have to make drastic decisions to save the business. Taking control of the coffee shop was one thing, fixing the chaos my sister had left was another entirely. That first week back was a whirlwind of emotions, tough decisions, and sleepless nights. I knew that if I wanted to save the place, I would have to act fast and take measures that probably wouldn't please everyone. My first move was to gather the remaining employees for a frank conversation. We needed to rebuild trust as a team and establish a clear plan to get back on track. I started by apologizing, not because I felt I had done anything wrong but because I understood that they had suffered the impact of the mismanagement. "I know the last few weeks have been a disaster," I said, "but I'm here to make sure this coffee shop is what it once was. We're going to make changes, and I need you to trust me. I know it's a lot to ask after what's happened, but I want you to know that every decision I make will be for the good of the team and the business." One of the oldest employees, a barista who had worked with us since the beginning, raised his hand. "Does that mean we're going back to the original recipes? Because honestly, that new stuff your sister put in was killing the soul of this place." I smiled. "Yes, starting today, we're going back to the classics. And not only that, we're also bringing back some of the things that customers have been requesting, like our carrot cake." That seemed to calm everyone down a bit, and while I knew there was still some skepticism, I was determined to earn their trust with actions, not just words.